In this episode of the CompareSoft podcast, we had the chance of talking with Charlie Wilson, who is currently the head of estates at Rare Restaurants. Charlie has over 10 years' experience in property and facilities management, working with esteemed companies such as Prezzo, Crown Plaza, and Easy Hotel. In this episode, Charlie touches on overcoming the challenges of managing Grade 1 listed buildings and also touches on his time working at Mosquito Island as maintenance manager. And this is Richard Branson's privately owned island, so this is a real good conversation. Stay tuned to learn about Charlie's fantastic experiences.
So thanks for joining us today, Charlie. We really appreciate your time to talk to us about facilities management. I'm Lauren, our podcast organiser, and as I previously mentioned, we find that facility teams are often underrated, which I'm sure you agree with. So hopefully with your podcast, we are going to further highlight the importance of FM to our audience. We do these podcasts to get insights from experts in the facilities management field, and we learn a lot from your experience. And we understand that your role will have been vital to many customer experiences in the restaurants and hotels that you have worked with. So we know your insights will be really helpful to our listeners. With that said, I'll pass you over to our hosts, our senior research analyst, Charlie, and head of content, Ryan.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Charlie. We really appreciate you coming on the podcast. We'll jump straight into the questions, if that's all right. We start these podcasts usually with a bit of an origin story, and I'm sure our listeners would be very keen to hear about your professional journey and how you got into the world of property and facilities management.
Yeah, it goes back quite a long way now. I mean, I was going right back when I was at school. I was never very academic. Never really enjoyed that side of things. So I think I always had this thing in me where I wanted more of a practical world. However, at that point in time, it never felt available. So it wasn't really until I was about 18, 19 until I thought, well, I really want to go ahead and get some sort of practical skill. So I ended up doing a 3-year apprenticeship in joinery. So I did my joinery apprenticeship, loved that on the practical side. And then after that, I went on to do like a HNC certificate, which is a slightly different thing to a sort of trade which you learn. So yeah, I was never really academic. I wanted a skill, and at that time, I was offered a position within a hotel to do sort of general maintenance and facilities. So that's kind of how I got started.
It's fascinating. Yeah, it's interesting how you found your way into it. And your current position is head of property and estates at Rare Restaurants. Could you tell us what a typical day looks like for you in that role?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, every single day, as I'm sure the facilities ladies and gents will tell you, that every single day is massively different. You could be dealing with something, high-level emergencies where you've got huge leaks and floods coming into the premises. You could be dealing with capital refurbishment programs, day-to-day general maintenance activities, dealing with contractors every single day, and obviously the property team. So it is very varied every single day. There's no day that is the same, which I guess is a good thing, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think we should maybe rephrase that question because everyone says the same thing, but it just shows how varied FM can be. But better to be busy than bored.
Yeah.
You previously worked within the hotel industry.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the switch between hotels and food and beverage where you are now? Maybe what the differences are in FM.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's massively transferable going from the sort of hotel side of hospitality into the sort of more F&B focused side. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, a hotel doesn't shut, which is it's 24/7, 365 days. So, you have the opportunity where restaurants are closed, so you can complete certain things out of hours a lot easier. Hell of a lot more people in hotels, so that has its own challenge. And like any business within hospitality, you're trying to look after the guest. So that remains the same from hotel versus restaurant. But yeah, I mean, relatively speaking, you've got a kitchen within a hotel, so you've got kitchens in the restaurants, you've got the bar, you've got the guests. So ultimately, it is the same, just a slightly slightly different business model, to be honest.
Is the focus, obviously the focus is on the customer, the guests of a hotel. Is it still the same when you come to a restaurant, or is there something else that takes a bit more priority there?
I think I think the experience of going to a hotel and being looked after versus going to a restaurant and being looked after, the principle's the same. Within a restaurant, you're there for a shorter period of time, and I think expectations may be slightly higher, especially when you come into a restaurant like Gaucho or M, where the experience is key. So I think it is you're spending a short amount of time within a restaurant than a hotel. I do feel the expectation is higher when you go out for a meal, especially on our type of level at the moment. People seem to be going out spending their money at the higher end of the market, I think, because they're really, they've worked really hard and they want to go and enjoy themselves. So yeah, I think there'll always be a slight difference, but I think the expectation of going out for a meal, particularly these days, is there's definitely more of an expectation that goes with it.
In 2015, you took on the role of maintenance manager at Mosquito Island, which is the privately owned island by Richard Branson in the Caribbean. Yeah. We found that intriguing. That is a really, really cool post. How did that come about, and what were your roles and responsibilities there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, absolutely amazing experience, and for myself, my career, my family, it was a brilliant opportunity. So it actually came through LinkedIn. I had a message one day. I was at work. I received a message, and I actually phoned my wife, and I said, "I've just had this message," and I sent it to her, and I said, "Is this legitimate?" And she said, "Well, it can only be legitimate." So I followed it through. We had various discussions, exchanged emails and messages. That was probably one of my first ever Teams call I ever did. I was like, "What's this about?" And it just progressed. It progressed, and it got to the point where we had to make a decision. So we went for it, and we moved across the Caribbean, rented our house out, and went over there, and it's a totally different world, to be quite honest.
It makes me think I should stop ignoring my LinkedIn messages, Charlie.
Do you know what I mean? It's something that I learned so much from. It was totally different to anything you're going to find, over here. Everything was difficult. The climate, logistics, they do things differently to the way that we do. So I learned loads of it. I learned loads of things over there. Met some amazing people who I still keep in contact with today. So I was really lucky to have that.
That's incredible, like the whole experience of that. And then you've had different roles, for example, at Foulsey Hall Hotel, which is a Grade 1 listed site. So there's got to be many challenges that come with working with Grade 1 listed sites as a maintenance manager. How do you sort of deal with those restrictions that are in place?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've worked in all different types of buildings, which I think is one of the most fun parts, really, about my sort of career in property and facilities management. But yeah, I mean, working within listing buildings has its own challenges, and you have to tread a bit more careful with what you're doing, have a different type of respect for the building. But you unearth things which are quite exciting when you start taking things apart. Obviously, you have to work with local authorities a bit closer, so different challenges. But I think that's what makes working in this industry quite exciting. That you never really know what you're going to find. Doesn't matter if it's a brand new building or if it's 800 years old. It doesn't matter. All different challenges.
Yeah, sure. If we'll go back to the time at Mosquito Island, where you mentioned about the implementation of a preventive maintenance schedule when you were there. How were you able to build that preventive maintenance strategy, and what worked best for you? What did it require from you while you were there?
I had to be really reliant on the people who were already in the business. So they obviously had a lot of knowledge over there, but it was about the principles remain the same. To be quite honest, we working really closely with trusted contractors, and in terms of contractors over there, you've got more local people who are very highly skilled, whether that be electrical plumbing. They were amazing at joinery and carpentry, which was great for me to be involved with. That's kind of my background. So it was heavily reliant on the people with the skill. Keeping a close knit relationship with those people, and building something that wasn't there in terms of more of a planned schedule. Looking after the estate, we were looking after people who had a lot of money on that island, and the expectation there was, far higher than any of the expectation I've probably ever come across in terms of what people are looking to find. There was no sort of margin there's not really any margin for breakdowns, to be honest, even though that there was. Yeah. However, you deal with it based on the people that you put in place and to support you. So it was about working with the local people, the trades, and also, obviously the team that are already on board, and just trying to strengthen it, to be honest.
I guess it comes back to what you were saying about the rare restaurants, creating that experience, making sure that experience never fails. I mean, we had a look at the room rates of Mosquito Island the other day, and if you're paying that much, you expect everything to be perfect,
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't matter whether you've got £1 billion or, a few £100. I think, your expectation is your expectation. And I think, obviously, over there, you meet some fascinating different people. And yeah, I mean, it goes back to the same thing. People are paying really good money for what they're, the experience. And we were there, obviously, as a supporting tool to kind of make sure everything runs smoothly. It never, ever does. You just, something always gets in the way every single day, but that's why you're there.
Yeah, sure. And generally as a whole, like in your experience, what do you feel there's only one maintenance strategy, for example, preventive maintenance strategy, that has the best success rate, or do you think there's a good balance between different strategies?
I think everybody does things differently. I don't think there's only one way to do it. I think everybody's got their own personalities and views and how they approach things and set things up. My sort of feeling is that I've always been. It depends on the business that you're working for and with. My preference is to always work with smaller contractors rather than national contractors. And build a relationship that way. I'd rather have more local contractors than national. For me, seems to work better. But I don't think there's one size that fits all facilities management. I think it's based on the person who's handling everything.
Yeah, sure. And obviously, when it comes to managing these strategies, there's the tools. So there's a nice balance between software tools, spreadsheets. A lot of facilities management experts we spoke to in the past find a good balance. What's your preference when it comes to managing these maintenance facilities duties?
Yeah, I mean, I've used various software tools, and probably 3 or 4 different ones now in the past sort of 10 to 12 years, and some good, some bad. I think obviously that they have their place within the industry. The challenge that I found across all of them is you've still got to get people to use it in the way that you want them to use it consistently. Obviously, that varies from my level down to somebody who's working within a pot wash area. So there's different levels of working with these systems. But I think it's about trying to get that consistency right, making sure everybody's doing the same or a similar thing. So they are a great tool. They really are. They allow you to budget. They allow you to track assets more effectively, and I think there will always be a need, and certainly for myself, I continue to use spreadsheets, for my own personal, project setups and things like that. I think it's just if that's what you've done as part of your career, you continue to do that.
Yeah, it's what I guess, isn't it?
It's what I mean, whether you share that with people is a different story. But I think there's always room for Excel and those type of tools. I mean, when I was working with Atlas Hotels. Their entire property system that we used, whether that was a budgeting tool or asset management tracking tool or life cycles, everything was based on Microsoft Excel. And it was probably the smoothest running operation in terms of property that I've ever worked with to this day.
Brilliant.
it just worked really, really well.
Yeah.
So it can work still.
Yeah, and I guess that's similar to when it comes to building, say, for example, a preventive maintenance strategy. You know, if you've done it through spreadsheets, it's going to work through spreadsheets.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's all based on preference. However, I do think the CAFM tools out there, you've got to go with that. You've got to go with it. It's just it makes life so much easier, in particular for for now, for like the restaurants logging reactive jobs, or we can track planned maintenance, and you can go back, look at spend on a particular asset. So they're hugely, hugely important. I think it's how you implement it is the hardest part of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they're great tools, but they're all different. But I think the challenges always remain the same.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I find whether it's spreadsheets or software, it's the information that's put in that's always the issue on either side.
Yeah.
But we've come to sort of an important part of the podcast, which is driving appreciation for facilities teams, and we know that FMs are often only appreciated when things go wrong. You mentioned a huge challenge in the construction of a £24 million hotel, Hotel Latour. Could you tell us a bit more about the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, I mean, I have to go right back in my memory now and dig some of this back out. Feels like a long time ago, but yeah, I think that was my first experience of being part of a new build and opening projects, and it opened my eyes to what can happen. We had a lot of issues with contractors who went bust. The handover was either not there or it wasn't correct. So it was definitely an eye opener over there. And I think sometimes when you're a facilities manager or an estates manager or property manager, whatever you want to call it, you're always expected to kind of have the answers to everything. Where if you don't have the answer, you're also expected to know somebody who does have the answer, and sometimes you don't have the answer, and I think that should be a clear message sometimes. But yeah, I mean, with any project, whether it's a complete new build or a small refurbishment, I think it's about adapting the best that you can. But yeah, Hotel Latour, it's great to be involved with, but there were a lot of issues there.
Bit of a learning curve, I bet.
Massively, yeah, massively.
So sort of with these challenges that you face, how do you think facility teams should go about driving appreciation for their important work? How do you go about shouting about your achievements?
Yeah, I mean, I think the general issues with facilities management as a whole is quite a negative industry. It's viewed as quite a negative thing, whereas you're dealing with a lot of problems every day, every week, and it feels like a cycle of when does this end? And the answer is it doesn't end, and you're there for that reason, is to solve problems, and I think it does go unnoticed at times. I'm not talking about my specific role now. I'm talking about the industry in general. But I think it depends on the person as an individual. I think you're there to solve problems and get things done. And that's what I like to do. I don't like to be held back. I like to get things done. So I think it's always going to be the same. I don't think we'll ever change that. I think it'll always be a case of they're just expected to do that and there's no appreciation. I don't think that's true. I think the facilities management in any business is key. But I think it all depends on the individual on how you handle that. Of do you feel appreciated? Do you have the answers? That's how I would see it anyway.
Perfect. One final question for us, Charlie. We like to end these podcasts with a bit of a learning experience, just to provide helpful insight to others. What advice, or what was the best advice you would give to someone just starting out in facilities or property management?
I mean, I think the first thing you have to do is you have to be able to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy that side of things, then don't do it. It's an amazing industry to be in. There's so many different categories you can fall into, different properties you can fall into. You can go abroad. There's so many things that you can do. It's changing. It's definitely changing. I think that it's an industry where you've really got to be on it. It's very hard to switch off at times, but again, that has its rewards. A lot of the businesses within FM There's an awful lot of work involved in terms of a lot of opportunities at different levels. I've come right from the bottom, and I've reached a really good level now. So I still don't know where I'll be going in terms of my level of career path, but no, I wouldn't put anybody off it. It's a brilliant industry to be involved with. I think one thing that needs to be focused on now for sort of future FMs is the level of efficiency, sustainability. That's playing a huge part now, and it really needs to be pushed and more. It needs to be given more focus. Whether that's to do with, in my industry, whether that's to do with a new opening, new project, a small capex refurbishment job, or it might even just be kitchen setups and equipment. But definitely, sustainability and efficiency is a huge thing to be focused on, and just drive the change. To be honest, because there is a lot to be done.
Yeah, we've done quite a lot in FM sustainability recently. It's such a big topic to touch on. Yeah, that's perfect. And obviously, the main advice from today's podcast is don't ignore your LinkedIn messages. I think you're right.
I almost did, but luckily I didn't.
Perfect. That's it, Charlie. Thanks so much for your insights today. It's really been great, understanding your origin, talking about your fantastic past experiences as well. So we'll be back with more fantastic guests like Charlie. You'll see this podcast up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as well. So bye for now.
Cheers.